Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, forcing the hand of the Islamic regime. The U.S. stands with Operation Rising Lion in the campaign to destroy Iran's nuclear capabilities. Analysis from international correspondent George Thomas on what could replace the Islamic regime. And a conversation with Hana Benheim about the spiritual aspects of this moment in history. Plus, where is God during times of war? How Israelis are digging deep into their faith. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. On Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Israel's Air Force controls the skies over Iran. Also on Monday, in the early hours, Israeli civilians, residential buildings, and infrastructure came under attack from very large Iranian missiles. The attack marked a turning point in Israel's war with Iran, while Israel continues its campaign to destroy Iran's nuclear infrastructure.
Overnight, missiles landed in Tel Aviv, killing at least 5 people. The IDF says Iran has launched hundreds of ballistic missiles. Most have been intercepted, but some managed to hit Israeli cities, including Bat Yam, over the weekend.
Behind me is just one of the locations where Iranian missiles have hit. It sheared one apartment building in half, destroyed a building beside it, and the damage goes for blocks around. The missile contained nearly 1,000 pounds of explosives.
9 were killed in the attack, 3 of them children, and nearly 200 injured.
But our spirit is strong and it will win. We know that our enemies tried to target civilians, but this is why starting tomorrow we're going to rebuild this area. We have 75 buildings that took a hit.
I've been to scenes of rocket impacts, whether it was from Hamas, whether it was from Hezbollah. I tell you, these are very large missiles that are landing here to cause such damage like this. Iran has openly called for the annihilation of Israel, of the United States, of all Western ideology. Israel had to do a preemptive strike in order to defend our civilians. Now, what we're targeting is strategic military targets. What they're targeting, like you see behind me in the various sites across Israel, is civilian infrastructure, residential communities.
Speaking from the site at Bat Yam, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned of what might happen if Iran is not stopped.
We're here because we're in an operation for the sake of our existence that is understood by all citizens of Israel. Imagine what would happen if Iran had nuclear weapons that would fall on all Israeli cities. Imagine what would happen if Iran had 20,000 missiles. Not one, but 20,000 of them. That is an existential threat.
The IDF says it's making history.
We are in the midst of unprecedented achievements in the history of the IDF. We are opening the route to Tehran.
In just 4 days, in what some are comparing to the miraculous Six-Day War in 1967, Israel has targeted the vast array of Iran's nuclear infrastructure, including enrichment facilities in Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. The IDF says most of Iran's military commanders have been eliminated, and Mossad agents on the ground have taken out Iranian air defenses, ballistic missiles, and nuclear scientists. Meanwhile, social media videos from inside Iran show Iranian citizens cheering the strikes, hoping it will bring down the dictatorship that's ruled for 46 years.
I call upon the Iranian people, this is your moment. This is your moment to stand up, to remove the mullahs if you can, and the world will stand behind you. I also want to say this is a moment where if we didn't act now, the cancerous tumor of Iranian nuclear program would be much worse in a year or 2 years. We are doing the dirty work for the world. We are the ones who are removing and preventing Iran from going nuclear. We are preventing Iran from being a danger to the world.
Opposition sources claim some Iranian leaders have already fled the country. In Israel, the spirit remains resolute.
Today in Iran, thousands of people are fleeing their capital after President Trump issued this warning to civilians: evacuate Tehran. Israel is sending the same message as it expands its air attacks against the regime, And now Iran reportedly wants the fighting to stop.
As he left Canada, Trump wrote on Truth Social, Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. A massive exodus of people are fleeing Iran's capital, as Israeli officials also urged thousands of people in Tehran on Monday to evacuate ahead of airstrikes. There are reports Iran is sending urgent signals to end the war and resume nuclear talks if the U.S. does not join the fight. Talking to ABC News, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he doesn't see signs Iran is serious about ending the war.
Well, we're going to see if Iran is serious about dismantling their nuclear program, dismantling their missile capacity, dismantling the terror axis that terrorizes everybody in the Middle East and well beyond. If they agree to all of that, obviously, the war could end. If they lay down their arms, they lay down their weapons of mass death, that's different. But so far, they haven't done it.
Netanyahu also said Israel will not rule out targeting the Ayatollah because taking him out would end the conflict. The IDF says it's hit more than 250 targets across Iran, estimating it's destroyed a third of the regime's ballistic missile launchers and continues to strike military infrastructure, surface-to-surface missiles, and UAVs. As in Gaza, Lebanon, and Yemen, Israel sent evacuation warnings to civilians in Tehran to avoid military targets. In the middle of a program, the IDF also hit the IRIB, Iran's state broadcaster, considered a key propaganda arm of the regime.
The center's activities were carried out under the direct guidance and mission of the Revolutionary Guard. For years, the Revolutionary Guard has called for the destruction of the State of Israel and genocide.
Monday night, Netanyahu said the campaign is far from over.
We have more goals, and we're really going to do a root canal here. We're changing the face of the Middle East, and this can lead to far-reaching changes, even within Iran itself.
Iran today is seeing the fastest growth of Christianity than in any other country in the world today, and they are on fire.
CBN's George Thomas has reported extensively on the underground church in Iran.
The church is on fire. The Iranian regime is scared to death of the rising evangelical movement inside the country. Not so much about a threat, that they want to depose the regime politically, but they want to bring a new spirit to the country. And there's a tremendous prayer movement that has been unleashed across Iran for many, many years. So many people seeing dreams and visions, seeing Jesus Christ in dreams and visions.
He says believers inside Iran need prayer now more than ever.
So pray for continued boldness and the strength and the courage in the days ahead, because the regime, when they're cornered, when they're under the spotlight and under the gun, so to speak, they tend to take their frustration and their anger on their own people.
Welcome back to Jerusalem Dateline. We're joined by George Thomas, CBN senior international correspondent, to talk more about what's going on inside Iran. Before we do that, George, I want to play a clip from Reza Pahlavi. He's the son of the late Shah. Here's what he had to say just a couple of days ago.
To the military, police, and security forces, I say, detach yourself from this regime and join the people. On your behalf, I say to the international community, instead of appeasing the Islamic regime, support the Iranian people. May Iran endure forever. Long live the Iranian nation.
Not too long ago, George, you had a one-on-one with Reza. Tell us about him. What's your reaction to his statement to the Iranian people?
Well, he has been positioning himself, Chris, for quite some time as the sort of face of the opposition outside of Iran, and his calls for the removal of the regime have only gotten louder since October 7th. He has joined, in essence, arms with Israel, continuing to, call for them to eliminate the various tentacles of this huge octopus with the head being the Islamic regime in Iran, and from the operation against Hamas to Hezbollah to the Houthis, the Crown Prince has been very, very vocal. And in the last few days, since the operation against Iran by the Israelis ensued, those voices, that message has grown louder. And what you heard in that clip, Chris, was in essence, he was asking the police, the security forces, the IRGC, and the security apparatus that controls Iran today to join the people of Iran, to in essence turn their back against the regime that has ruled this nation for 46 years, and to say this is the moment where you must lay down your weapons and join the resistance against the regime, and in essence join the people of Iran and chart a new path forward. And the Iranian regime knows they're on their back foot. They've lost, in essence, their major players, their major supporters in the region, and they're, in essence, begging the Israelis and the Americans back to the negotiating table to come up with some kind of a deal, because they know they've been battered and bruised in the last couple of days since Israel started this military operation against them.
Yeah, there have been many protests in the last few years. 2009, the Green Revolution, and then 2022 to 23, when tragically that Mashhad Amini was killed. Could this be a difference maker because of what Israel has done to destroy much of some of the infrastructure and some of the leadership there in Iran?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, look, if you look back, one of the things that prevented Israel from really going after Iran has been the threats in the immediate neighborhood of Israel. First, Hamas, second, Hezbollah, and then in recent years, the Houthis in Yemen. And then obviously, let's not forget the dramatic fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. Again, another element within the region that was propped up by the Islamic regime in Tehran, money funneled, weapons being transported into this region, lots of training and recruiting. Now that the chessboard has been cleared of these various players, Israel can now go after the king, so to speak, on the chessboard, in this sense, the regime in Iran.
And how can people be praying, for, George, for the people there, and especially the underground church in Iran?
Yeah, pray for the leaders who are at the center of these underground church movements. Many of them are not very, very old. They're younger generation, but they're fearless. We've had a chance to interview them. We've had a chance to meet them in different locations around the world, and they are bold. They are very, very bold, and they're courageous, and they sense the changes that are taking place around them. And keep in mind, they've been praying for this for 46 years since the Islamic Revolution occurred, and these mullahs came into power. They've been praying for a very, very long time. And so just pray that those who may get rounded up, those who may be arrested, detained, that they would have continued strength and courage in the months ahead.
George Thomas, great insight on how to pray and what's going on right now in Iran and throughout the Middle East. Thanks so much. Welcome back to Jerusalem Dateline. I'm joined here in our studios with Hana Benheim, a great friend, very watcher of Jerusalem Dateline as well.
Yeah.
Tour guide, mother of Israel, grandmother of Israel. We were talking earlier today, and we just thought we wanted to sit down and get your ideas, your thoughts about what's happening here. We are living in just so historic, momentous times. Many people call it a hinge of history. How do you see what we're living through literally right now?
Yeah, even today, it could be the pivotal day of God speaking to the nations. God saying to the nations, see, I'm the God who said it, I did it, and now I'm ruling in the midst of the enemies that are my enemies. These are not Israel's enemies. This war is not about Israel. This war is about the enemies of God. And So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a historic moment where the strength and the power of God is being manifest. Now, he uses human beings, he uses weaponry, but he is also a God of war, because he also is a God of peace. And he has to settle his if you like, his differences with his enemies. So this is really the day of God's power.
And we were talking about what a sort of a privilege it is to be living in these days, to be here in Jerusalem. As it says in the book of Esther, for such a time as this. Right. And you have a scripture in mind.
Yeah, I talking about the day of God's power, this psalm, which is more quoted than any other in the New Testament, talks about the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord shall send the rod of your strength out of Zion, rule in the midst of your enemies. So that's Psalm 110. Of course, it goes on to talk about how he's going to judge and execute kings in his wrath. But all of this is being done by God himself. By God himself, because he says, I'm going to rule out of Zion. This scepter is never going to be removed from Judah. You know, the scepter of my law is going to go forth from Zion. Yeah. And so he hasn't changed his mind. Maybe the rest of the world has changed their mind, but he is showing himself sovereign. And one thing that's really come to me in these days, and I've been in many prayer meetings, so have you, is how many people are praying for the Iranians. The Iranians and everyone in the Middle East, these are not our enemies. We are not warring against flesh and blood. We're warring against powers and principalities in high places. We're warring against satanic regimes that keep people in bondage and cannot allow them to know him. Yeah. So, we're in a very pivotal moment in history to see our enemies, so-called, be made our family.
And the book of Daniel talks about the prince of Persia that opposed Michael for 21 days. Right. And we don't want to minimize what Prime Minister Netanyahu has done, or President Trump, or the IDF, Mossad, amazing historic achievements on the military battlefield, covert operations. But this puts it into balance about what God is doing in the midst of this historic change in the last 5 days.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it's 5 days yet, you know? Yeah. I mean, we are seeing not just history being made, but we're seeing turning a corner. Turning a corner. You know, when I review what Israel has been through in the past 40 years plus, it has all been connected to this powerhouse coming out of Iran using proxies all around us. Yeah. You know, all our bomb shelters are a result, and the hundreds of them that we have built, thousands and thousands, is a result of trying to defend ourselves against an enemy of Zion. All right? Yeah. And so it's not my plan, it's not your plan, it's God's plan to rule in the midst of his enemies. Yeah. So I encourage you to read this Psalm 110 and be encouraged, because it is the day of God's power. It really is.
Last question with about a minute to go. Are we at a spiritual crossroads here in Israel, in the Middle East, and the world, and how should people be praying and preparing?
First of all, wake up. You know, if anyone is sleeping through this and thinking this is not an enormous turn of events, this is not history being made, well, then they've got their head in the sand. I mean, he has his footsteps being prepared to come back. And so this is a time for the church to be awakened. This is a time for the church to be not just praying, but standing with. You know what this psalm says? It says, in the day of God's power, my people, who is that? Those are believers. They will volunteer. They will volunteer. They will come here, and not even come here, but they will stand in a place of protection for Israel. They will serve what God is doing in this place for his holy namesake. This is not for Israel. This is for God's holy namesake. Amen. That's what's being lifted up.
Yeah. Hana Benheim, love your perspective, and thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Speaking of a growing spiritual awareness in Israel, we have a remarkable moment to share with you from a recent newscast here. After days of assault from Iran, the overall sense among Israelis is that they are witnessing the miraculous, that the casualties are far less than they could have been, and this call to prayer by a secular news anchor and his putting on a kippah shows public acknowledgement of God's hand of protection over Israel. Take a look.
אני לא יודע אם יש עוד מדינות אני בטוח שלא, שיכולות לעבור את מה שאנחנו עוברים ובצורה שאנחנו עוברים. אנחנו עוד בתוך המערכה הזאת עוד ארוכה, אבל אי אפשר שלא להודות על הניסים והנפלאות שאנחנו רואים. פשוט באמת, מעל ומעבר לתפיסה של כל אחד מאיתנו, ועל כן חייבים לומר כאן מזמור לתודה. מזמור לתודה. הריעו לאדוני כל הארץ, עבדו את אדוני בשמחה, בואו לפניו ברננה. דעו כי הוא אדוני, הוא האלוהים, הוא עשנו ולא אנחנו, עמו וצאן מרעיתו. בואו שעריו בתודה, חצרותיו בתהילה. הודו לו ברכו שמו, כי טוב אדוני לעולם חסדו, ועל דור ודור אמונתו.
As the saying goes, there are no atheists in foxholes. That may or may not be true, but CBN's Raj Nair brings us a story about believers who found themselves in a bomb shelter and took advantage of an opportunity to worship. Take a look.
For the past 24 hours, we have been covering the Iran-Israel conflict, and then I looked on my Instagram and I almost started crying when I saw some videos that I have to share with you now. I got a reason to pray. Worshippers, Israeli worshippers, worshiping the living God in a bomb shelter during the Iranian ballistic missile attack. Oh my gosh, take a look. So Emily, you're the one who took these videos. What was happening in that moment?
So we got the alert that we are going to get a barrage of missiles coming to us, thousands of missiles from Iran. And so I'm with a group of young adults at the moment. They're all between the ages of 18 and 30, and many of them their first time to Israel. So we hunkered down in the bomb shelter. We had also just finished celebrating Shabbat. We had just finished. We finish our food. We're about to go and do worship outside. Then the sirens go off. And so we continue the worship down in the shelter. And so other Israeli families joined us that are neighboring because there's a big bomb shelter, and many actually non-believers, honestly. And so we had kids down there, and it was just very special because we didn't actually hear any of the Iron Dome's interceptions, which are really loud because we're worshiping so loud.
You will prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Under your wings, I will take refuge. The lead singer there, Emmanuel Roro, is a well-known Messianic Israeli singer. Let's just look at some more videos. Take a look.
My house was built on I stay with you. I'm gonna make it through. My house was built on you.
That's a great story, and just one example of many things like that happening here in Israel for such a time as this. Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and you can access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And at this critical moment, please keep lifting up Israel, Iran, and the Middle East, that God would thwart the plans of evil men and bring about his righteousness on the earth. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.